Hi everyone, Anchita this side. Welcome back to the Python series. This is lecture 5 and today we will learn one of the most important building block of any programming languages, which is conditional statement. So this is where your code start making decisions. So just imagine telling your computer if this happens, do that, otherwise do something else. So that's exactly what we are going to learn today with the conditional statement. Now let's go to editor and start learning about the conditional statement. So we'll create a new file over here and we'll name it as conditional statements py. Conditional statements let you run different blocks of code based on whether condition is true or false. And in Python, we use if, elif, and else. So this is the definition of conditional statements. And in Python, we use elif and else. Now let's learn about this one by one. So first one is our if. What does if statement do? So if statement is basically used to test a condition. So if the condition is true, the code block under if is executed. Now let's see one example for this one. For example, you have an age 20. And now I'm writing a condition over here. If age is greater than 18, I'm writing some print statement. If this condition is true, then only it will print you are an adult. Let's run this program and let's see what is happening. In this case, our condition is actually matching. So 20 is greater than 18. In this case, the condition is true, right? If this is true, then now it should print you are an adult. So now let's run this one. See, it is printing the message you are an adult. Fine. But what if your age is less than 18? And now if we run this one, you see, it is not printing anything. So if statement only works if the condition is true over here. So we can just quickly write the notes here. So we can say this is used to test a condition. And in case the condition is true, then only the code block under if will be executed. So we saw both the conditions. First one, we saw the condition where it was true, where the age was more than 18. Then it executed this code, right? Code block. And in case of false, which is this case, it is not executing this line of code. So this is the case with if. Now the other one is elif, which is short for else if. So we use elif to test another condition if the previous if condition was false. In this, you can have multiple elif blocks and Python checks them in order. So what does that mean? For example, you have written this age is 10 and this condition is not matching. Then it will check in case if there is elif condition, it will check for that elif condition. Now let's use the same example and let's write a elif code over here. I have just commented this part. Let's take the same example. Age is 10 and this condition is false. So here I'm writing elif and over here I'm writing one more condition and saying if age is greater than 5, then print. Here I'm writing the print statement. You are a child but no longer a toddler. So in this condition, here it will check if your age is greater than 5. So this is not satisfying, right? This is false. In this case, this print statement will not be executed, which is under if condition. And now it will go to elif condition. It will check for the condition. And in this case, the condition is matching, right? 10 is greater than 5. And now it will print this one. So now let's run this case and let's see. So you see, it is actually printing this case. Like I mentioned, we can have multiple elif condition also. Now let's see one example for that. So for example, we have one more elif condition over here and I'm adding it elif. Age is less than 2. Fine. And for this one, I'm printing you are a toddler. In this case, what will happen? It will check the if condition. If condition is matching, in case your age is 10, it is not matching, right? It will go to second elif condition. If this is matching, 10 is less than 2, it is not matching. Then it will go to the third condition where it will check if 10 is greater than 5. Yes, it is greater than 5. And then it will print this one. Now let's run this case. So here it is printing the third statement. It is matching with the third condition. In case over here, what we have age as 1. In this case, 1 is greater than 18. No. 1 is less than 2. Yes. In this case, it will print only you are a toddler. It will not go to the third elif condition. It only goes to the next condition in case if this is not satisfied. Now let's run this case. So here you can see this is only printing you are a toddler. But if you have multiple if conditions, it will always run all the if conditions. Now we will see one example for multiple if condition. So in this case, all the if conditions will be executed independently. Using multiple if condition means each condition is checked independently, even if the previous one was true. Now let's see an example for this one. For example, we have an age as 22. If age is greater than 18, then print you can vote. This is our first if condition. We have one more if condition. We are saying if age is greater than 20, that means print you can drive. And we have one more condition. If age is greater than 21, print you can rent a car. So now we have three if statements over here. And all the three statements actually are true. So this is again 22 is greater than 18. It will print this one. Now it will check the other condition. It will check if 22 is greater than 20. It is again matching. It will print this statement as well. Then it will go to the third one. It will again check for the condition. Again it is matching and it will print. But in case of elif, what happens? As soon as the condition is satisfied, it will stop there. It will not go to the next statement. But in case of if, it will always execute multiple if statements and all the if statements will be checked independently. Now let's run this case. And you see over here, it is printing all the three statements. And now let's say if we just modify this one, in this case, what will happen? In this case, it will just print first and second statement. So if I run this again, you see it is only printing first and second statement. Now let's see one more case. For example, if we change the condition here, if we are saying if age is less than 20, in that case, it will not print the second block of code, which is this one, for the second if condition. Fine, because this is false. But it will print the third one. In this case, it will print you can vote and you can rent a car. So now let's run this case. So here you can see you can vote and you can rent a car. That means it is actually checking for all the conditions. Now the same thing if we do with elif. So for example, we are writing over here elif. And in elif, so in elif, what will happen? In elif, for example, if this criteria is matched, it will not check the elif condition, right? So let's do one thing. Let's write over here if age is greater than 28. That means it is false and it will go to the elif condition. But here, the second elif condition, this one, is actually true, right? In this case, it will not go to the third one. Although this is also true. This is also true, right? But it will not print. Here, it will just print this you can drive. Fine. Now, if we run this one, you see it is just printing you can drive. So this is the difference between if and elif. Now let's see the third statement, which is if, elif, and else. So in case of else, what happens? The else block only runs if none of the previous conditions were true. So it's just like a default fallback, we can say. So let's write over here. For example, all of your previous conditions are false. Here all the conditions are false. Then only it will run the else condition. Now let's take the same example. If age is less than 20, which is not true. If age is less than 21, which is again not true. So all the conditions are false here, right? In this case, it will go to your else statement. And here, let's print. So here I'm printing the default statement, you are in else block. So in this case, it will check for all the conditions. First condition is false, second is false, third is false, and then it will go to the else statement. And if we run this one, now it will only print you are in else block. You see over here. But in case if any of the above conditions are matching, for example, this one, if your age is greater than 18, in this case, my condition is true, right? In this case, it will not go to else block. So if you run this one, you see, it is only running the first one. So this is the typical examples of if, elif, and else in Python. Now, next important thing to note over here. Python always use indentation to identify the code blocks. So in case of wrong indentation, it will throw an error. What does that mean? For example, if you write print here, so it will start giving you the error. So always make sure you have proper indentation when you are writing the Python code. Now let's see the other case, which is multiple conditions. Here we are going to use operators like and or. Now let's see the example in this case. For example, we have username as admin, and then we have password over here 12345. And here we are writing a condition. We are saying if username is admin and if the password is 12345, then print login successful. And if this condition is not true, then go to else statement and print invalid credentials. So here we are seeing two concepts. Here, first we are seeing the multiple conditions in which we are using and over here, right? You can add multiple conditions together. Fine. The other concept is we can directly use else with if. So it's not like you have to use else only with elif. You can also use else with if directly. In this case, it will check for both the conditions. If both the conditions are true, then only it will print this one, right? We have already seen in the operators session previously. So in case if first, it will check for first condition, which is true. So true and true, right? Both the conditions are satisfied. Then only it will print login successful. So in this case, both are true. So it will actually print the login successful. So if you run this one, you see login successful. But in case if it is not matching, let's change the password over here. Fine. In this case, it is true and false. So we know when it is true and false, it will return as false. And in case of false, it will not execute the code block in case the condition is false. In this case, it will go to the else statement and it will print invalid credentials. So if we run this one, here we can see it is printing invalid credentials. So it is actually checking the conditions over here. So this way you can pass multiple conditions also with the if else block. Now let's see one more example. So we have a variable Saturday. Here we are saying if your day is Saturday or date double equal to Sunday. If this is true, then print it's the weekend. And in case this is not true, let's go to else condition and print it's the weekday. So in this case, what will happen? In this case, we are testing for or condition. So if day is Saturday, which is true. So true or false. In this case, what will happen? In this case, it will be true. So we have seen this already, right? In case of and, it will check for both the conditions are true. Even if one is false, it will be considered as false. But in case of or, it will check even if the one condition is true, the result would be true in that case. And in this case, it will print it's the weekend. So now let's run this one. And here we can see it is printing it's the weekend. It will only print false if both the conditions are false. So this is about different multiple conditions with the if else. Now let's see one more concept, which is nested if statements. A nested if statement is when you place an if statement inside another if statement. So this allows you to perform more detailed and multi-layered check within the single decision-making structure. So in this case, how it works, the outer if condition, first of all, that will be executed. If the outer condition is true, then only it will come to the inner if statement. And if inner statement has its own condition, it will check for that specific decision. Now let's try to understand it with an example over here. For example, we have this variable score and we have one more variable which is has passed. Fine, this is Boolean value. So first of all, we are saying if has passed, which is true, that means this is true. Now we are writing one more if condition over here. We are saying if score is greater than 80, print a message. So let's print you passed with distinction. And for this if condition, we are writing one else block. And here I'm printing you passed. And now here I'm adding one more else condition where I'm saying you failed. So here what will happen? First, it will check if the condition is true, it is true. Then it will check this condition. If score is greater than 80. So this is nested if. Nested if means if inside another if. We have seen multiple if, that is a different concept. That means both all the ifs were at same level, but this is inside the other if statement. So that's why it will always check if this condition is true. Condition is true. Now it is checking if score is greater than 80. It is greater than 80, then it will print you passed with distinction. So if we run this case and you see here it is printing you passed with distinction. But in case if our score is less than 80, right? Let's write over here 55. In this case, what will happen? It will print you passed. It will not print this one, right? Because it is not satisfying this condition. Here, 55 is not greater than 80, right? It will be false. That's why it will go to else block and it will say you passed. This else block is for outer if condition. If outer if condition is not matching, then it will go to this else block. But the internal else part, else statement, it is linked with your this internal if statement. So if we run this case, you see now it is saying you passed. Now let's see the scenario for outer else condition. So here if I'm saying if has passed is false, in this case it will not go inside this one because the outer condition is false here. In case the outer condition is false, like I mentioned, it will not even check the internal conditions, even if we have if or we have else. So if we run this case, it is only printing you failed. Why? Because it is checking the outer condition, and in this case if condition is not matching, that's why it is directly going to your else condition. Now let's see one more practice question over here. So for example, we have this practice question where we have x as 0. If x, then print non-zero, else 0. So in this case, what will happen? In this case, it will actually check for the condition. 0 means false. In this case, we have if condition, if statement is false. So here 0 would be printed. So now if we run this case, 0. It is not printing non-zero. So always check for this one. You should know 0 is false and 1 is true. So here in case if we have 1, so in this case it will print non-zero. So if we run this again, so here we can see this is non-zero. So that's all for today's session about the conditional statements. So we learned about what is if, what is elif, and what is else. And we also learned about multiple if statements and nested if conditions. And important notes over here, do not forget to add colons at the end of your condition. So in case if you do not add colon over here, it will start throwing an error. So do not forget to add a colon and also keep your indentation consistent. In case of wrong indentation, if it is like this, it will start giving you error. So make sure of these two important points, which is about the colons and about the indentation when you are writing the Python code. So yeah, that's all for today's video. And if you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. And thank you for watching AB Automation Hub.